Good day, all. We're going to service a RockShox Super Deluxe Coil shock today. I already took the adjusters, recorded the number of clicks. This is all the way out. No compression adjustment, but I would do the same for that. Valve core tool, remove this. IFP cap. Normally it comes out a lot easier. The O-ring slid off of this one. Okay, remove the valve core. RockShox Vivid tool, pin tool, pin spanner. Pause.
Good.
Okay, we just had a tool failure. It was an old tool, so we're back. And normally I use a pipe on this. I like to blow it out so you don't get dust in the shock body. Okay, that's loose. At the same time, push this down and push the circlip in and pull that out. Wiggle out this IFP cap. Wiper. This side comes out. Just pull it up carefully. Boom. Come here. Can you look in there? So that's the IFP T10 torque screw. Rip it out. Boom. Come in with your MTV Hydraulics M5 syringe. Thread it in. Pull it out. Use some shop towel to absorb this. Okay. Dump out the oil. Okay, we'll set this aside. Take off the piston. It's 12mm socket. What's the torque spec on this, cameraman? 8 Newton meters?
8.3 or something.
Something like 8.3 Newton meters. What is that, 6 foot-pounds or something? Something like that. Use a pick to get all this. Remove the seal head. Remove the bottom out bumper. Wiper. Boom. I'm going to spray this down. There's isopropyl alcohol or degreaser, whatever you want. goes back on. This is draining, and we'll replace the seals. Okay, so we'll replace the seals. There's about 5 of them in this shop, the ones that actually matter or have a tendency to wear out. We're using an MTB Hydraulics RockShox Vivid / Super Deluxe Coil Routine Service Seal Kit. So this can be purchased from mtb-hydraulics.com. Pretty cheap seal kit. So a grand total of 5 seals it comes with. So we'll pry out this seal head wiper. Just like that. Underneath there is an O-ring. We'll just stab it and pop it out of its groove. Boom. And we'll wipe this out. Lastly, this seal on the threads, take off. Sometimes this spring separates from the seal head, so then there is a tiny screw here. You need to undo that, put the spring back in, and retighten it. It's not very common. So that's putting that back on, shoving this back in. I like to use the side of the pick to guide the O-ring into the groove. And then the wiper I like to squeeze. Some wipers you need to use needle nose to squeeze and get one end of it in like that, and then push in the other side. Some wipers you also need to use something smooth and tapered to kind of size it, but this one is assembles pretty easily. So I'm just wiping off this IFP cap. Remove that seal. Wipe off the seal groove. Boom. Okay, so I'm removing the seal from this IFP. This one's really tight for some reason. Put on the wrong seal.
Not that I know.
This one's way too tight. The cameraman assembled it with the wrong seal last year. Oh well.
Oops.
And then that's the replacement. Wipe out the seal groove before putting the replacement in place. Wipe off the back side of this piston. Boom. So that's it. Now we're going to put this back onto the shaft, wiggle it, and bring it closer. Yeah, so wiggle this and push down at the same time. Takes a bit of force. And then be really careful when putting this on, this shim stack. Also make sure that everything looks good. These ones are not dirty, and the shims are not discolored, so I'm just putting them back on. If If you want to, you can lay them out and wipe the individual seals, but this shock is for the cameraman, so the performance doesn't really matter.
I don't care what your
It's okay if it's semi-broken. No, it's joking. So I'm pushing down with this pick to make sure it doesn't slide off. There's the nut. Make sure that everything is in place. If there's something sticking out to the side, then you've likely pinched the shim. This one looks good. I'm not using a torque wrench because quality is not important in this scenario, because the rider is not going to use it very much. But he just rides on the sidewalks. Sometimes jumps off the curbs. But anyway, that's cool. So that's good. No, I'm just I know how tight it needs. I feel how tight it needs to be. I've done a few of these. So that's that. And then now we will we're using the pin spanner and the countermeasure tool. It so happens that I used it for the same travel shock last time, and I just had to put it on and it was super easy. But sometimes or most of the time there's more messing around, but that's that. And we'll fill up the shock and go from there. Okay, so we'll fill this up. It uses 7-weight Maxima oil. I prefer to pour it out from this pail. Oh, what is this?
3-weight.
Oh, it's 3-weight. My bad. We'll use this one. And I'm not cleaning this very much because the shock was in good shape. Also, make sure the lockout is in the open position. Come on, come closer. So we'll do I filled this side up all the way. We'll put a rubber glove over here and just purge that a little bit. That's good. Not much air came out of it, but a few bubbles are rising on this side. Just let it overflow. Skim them off. Make sure this is nice and clean, this IFP. Tiny bubbles. Cover this. Push the IFP into the reservoir. Boom. I like to cap it, put the screw back in, and then push it down carefully. Actually, you don't need to go too crazy about this side. A lot of oil will get displaced. Okay. inserting the piston, and I'm holding down the IFP on this side so that we press some oil through the piston, which purges the piston of air pockets. And I'm still pushing down on the IFP gently. So that's good. Now I can start to feel the O-ring is engaged, so I can no longer hold the IFP back. And that's it. That's it. So now I like to go in and put some oil in this syringe. Let me turn it around. At this point also you can push down on the IFP and it should feel really stiff. If it doesn't feel stiff, then there's air in the shock. You don't want that. Anytime you put a syringe onto something, press oil into the syringe, because the tip of the syringe usually has an air bubble. So I just bottomed out the IFP. I'm going back and forth a couple of times just to make sure there's nothing stuck under the IFP. A couple tiny bubbles came out. Wait for them to rise. Also at this point, need a caliper. And this shock is 65mm travel. So it needs to be 33mm of IFP depth. If it's a 70, or if it's over 65, then you need 39mm IFP depth. Every other size is 33. That's it. Oh. Boom. Plug this. I'm going to pour out this extra oil in the IFP. I wipe it a little bit, but not too much. It's nice to keep it moist, keep it lubricated. Also, this circlip often deforms, so I like to kind of pry it apart a little bit. It tends to deform and undersize itself. Make sure it's sitting nicely in this groove, because these reservoirs sometimes explode. Also, at this point, if you don't pay attention, which I don't normally, for this specific detail, you might end up with this tool being over the reservoir. So it's a little annoying, but that's fine. You can just remove the tool at that point, because you've already set the IFP depth. Actually, you can't really set the IFP properly, but you kind of can. Yeah, you might need to reposition, but not a big deal. I usually make it work without having to reposition, but anyway. I'm using a Fox 2021 Plus model year reservoir inflator tool. Much better than the RockShox. So I put the valve core back in place. It's going up to 250 psi. Okay, this whole thing needs to come off. Oh. When that happens, usually means the valve core is done. All the air came out. It's annoying. RockShox valve cores are quite bad, so I replaced them with a Fox one. Boom. Try again. Oops. That's it. At this point, it's going to be removed easily because it extends the shock even like by another millimeter. Just really compresses that spring by having the IFP pressure. I noticed a tiny nick on this stanchion. Shit. But we know the cameraman. We know from the cameraman that it wasn't leaking, so you're usually okay. But you know what? I'm gonna give him a bit of a treatment. Use 400 grit sandpaper just to gently knock off the edge. This just very gently. 600 grit also works. Probably even better actually for this one.
Underneath the other ones.
Oh yeah. We have some. Oh, it says it's 400, but it's a lot smoother. Well, the cameraman threw this shock on the bench when he took it off the bike, so that might have done it. I don't know. That's it. Now we're just gonna spray this thing down and off we go to the next video. Wait. Oh, actually, guys, always want to compress it. Make sure it's nice and quiet. That's how you know that there's no air in the shock. And you'll feel the first bit of travel is kind of strange because of that spring, the countermeasure feature. But so you're looking for the sound of air. And then testing the lockout. Cameraman is missing the lockout lever, so I'm not going to test it. But anyway, that's it.